Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome, Leanne and Becky. Is it actually okay if I call you Becky? I could have
Yeah, of
asked. Yeah,
course.
fine, I thought so. So I'm joined by the lovely Leanne and Becky who are here to talk about their experience in the time coach certification. So I would love for you guys to just briefly introduce yourselves, just like name, where you're from, anything else you want to share, basically.
I'm Leanne. I live in Western Canada and I'm a mother of two and I work in heritage preservation.
Amazing. Thank you, Leanne.
I'm Becky or Rebecca, and I live in the UK in the Midlands. And I am a multi-passionate business owner. I do lots of different things, but essentially I work mostly with women and I help them recover post-surgery with abdominal scarring, breast scarring, and also newly just starting to work with them in their environment. So supporting them and making sure that their home life really supports their recovery. So something new that's just starting to come in more recently, actually, since doing the certification.
Amazing, which is so fun just to get the ball rolling. But it's like since the certification, different opportunities come that might not feel directly related to it. But I do think we go through this change where we see and create different opportunities anyway. So we'll definitely speak about that. But first, just because I mean, I love the diversity of background and experience. And so just even to start with, like, what brought you into, like, what first intrigued you about the program and joining it?
I could start.
Yeah.
I first was a listener to the podcast and
Here we are.
remember a few years ago hearing you talk about the certification and becoming a time coach. And I remember I was driving on the highway. There was like nobody around me, and I just was able to listen. And I thought, oh, yes, wouldn't that be lovely? And I thought, if I was single and I only had to make choices just for me, I would choose this. Like, I would have no problem just saying yes to this. But then I thought, I am a parent and my disposable income is not only reserved just for myself. And so I thought, I can't ask the family to invest this. And so it just seemed a little out of reach. And then last summer, I remember listening again to the podcast and hearing some of the interviews with the new coaches. And I thought, oh, they sound like normal people. They don't sound like Tony Robbins or like these these coaching gurus. They sound like approachable people that would be just like me. So then I remembered that and how my gut instinct had wanted to say yes. And so I was thinking about it and then I thought, well, I'll just apply. Maybe they'll say no and then, this will stop. And so I did apply and I did not bring up the topic or this wish to my partner. I just thought, well, let's just go down this route, kind of independently first. And then the response was yes. And then I thought, oh, now, like, and then I had a lot of fear about bringing up this desire with my partner and to ask, like, is it okay if we set aside this budget money for this program? And then the first blessing that came out of it all was that my partner very easily said yes and recognized, like, if this is something you want to do, then you should do it. And it didn't have conditions, attached to it. It was just like I'm all in if you're all in. And so it was like a real boost to my relationship, even before I started the program. So that was really nice. Yeah.
That's so powerful to think about, like the assumptions that we have even within our relationships, that it gave you the opportunity to expose in like such a beautiful way.
So lovely. So for me, it was slightly different, but I also was a podcast listener. And now, since doing the certification, realized I was addicted to looking for the answers in podcasts.
Hmm.
So I was in overconsumption for a very, very long time. So I thought I wanted to be a coach, but never committed. So signed up to many people's newsletters, listened to the podcast religiously, and lots of other just all different types of coaches, actually, just to kind of get a vibe of what sort of coach I wanted to be, because I was looking externally everywhere for the answer. And sort of that magic moment, I think I was listening out for the permission slip just to be handed over to me to make the decision to become a coach. And didn't realize now I do, that I was getting very, very overwhelmed by
Yeah.
everybody else's voices. They weren't my own thoughts. So I was just taking on so many other people's opinions that I didn't know what my what my own thoughts were anymore. And I started to recognize that before signing up. However, I was like addicted. So the idea of missing a podcast might be like, but I'm going to miss who I need to sign up with, or what I need to do, or what the next step is, or what the change in the career path. And every time I'd listen to different podcasts, I'd hear different things that made me feel, oh, it's that I need to fix. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's this. I could help someone with that. It was always what I could do for the other person in my work. So I was always sort of thinking, oh, yes, that's their problem. Okay, let's do that. So I started to become a little bit more aware that that's what I was doing, until I listened to a podcast with you, Vicky, and your parents before you went away, and something made me stop in my tracks. And I feel emotional saying it, actually, because it was like I was in your living room with your parents. And I know you recorded them individually, but when I listened to both of them, I felt like I was there. And there was this connection that I didn't know why or where it come from, but it was similar to what Leanne said about being approachable. There was this real, like, Vicky is just a normal person who's found that she can understand where her issues around time were, and tried all the different ways to make a difference around time. But listening to you and your parents, this connection felt so real that I then reached out. And that was one step that I'd never ever made before. It was like, actually, this is more than signing up to a newsletter. It was very much like, Vicky, I have this idea. I might be interested. But again, I wasn't convinced it was the right decision for me until you gave me a few minutes coaching on a call with my permission, which I absolutely adored. Didn't push me, didn't ask. Literally, I was expecting a sales call, did not get that. I just realized that I needed to do this for me and not for anybody else. And just talking to you, I realized who you were attracting into the program would be, on some level, my people. And that has been the biggest blessing of this program so far, is just realizing how, in inverted commas, normal we all are, because we're all just ourselves. And when we are ourselves, we have a common thread amongst us all. And I then realized permission was not what I needed elsewhere. It was all within me. And it all started with signing up. And yeah, so it was very, very powerful. But that's kind of my journey to get to here, really. Yeah.
Yes, I remember in my Instagram DMs, and you were like, "Can we chat?" And I was like, "Yeah, we can chat." And it was like, "We can chat now." We can. It was so informal.
It
We
was.
just popped on and spoke, and you were just telling me what was going on in your brain, and I just offered you a few questions. And I was like, "Okay, bye."
And it was like, bye. And I was like, no, I need an answer. And I realized there and then this was a really exciting chance for change.
Yeah, and I think what I love that both of you have shared is like I don't think there's a lot of spaces where we have like the time, the space, the ability to be so vulnerable because we're all coaching each other in this room, to be so vulnerable, to be so human, to be like in intent. A lot of this program is built around creating safety in ourselves, safety as a coach, safety for clients, all of this stuff. And I think that like the version of you that other people get to see, like you mentioned the word authentic, it's not that we're necessarily inauthentic in other areas intentionally. It's like the tools that you are developing and the skills that you are developing because you guys are the coaches and the coachees. I think you're completely right. Like it's just a very special like relationship container.
And with ourselves, because I think it's not about even really being authentic, it's trusting that what we truly believe in our heart is something that we can act on. And often we're perceived in a certain way in our careers. I'm very aware that a big part of my journey was being known for what I've done for 20 odd years, and then to make a pivot felt terrifying. But I can sit here now and go, I almost forgot, because it wasn't even, as soon as I realized what it was, I was like, it's not even a thing anymore. Who actually cares? And I literally, the superpower is it within that. But during the process, I just thought I was going to be judged and everyone was going to think that, oh, now she's a coach. And I just had all these funny thoughts. But that connection with trusting myself, and therefore then showing up how I want to, rather than thinking I needed to be a certain way in front of other people, or even allowing them to cast their own thoughts on whatever I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that when we first started meeting in the cohort, I very quickly realized how accomplished everyone was in their own field. And so I think, Vicky, what you're kind of describing in our professional lives is sort of that polished, sort of very capable segment of our lives. But then in the cohort, we allowed all the rest of ourselves to show through. Whereas in our professional lives, maybe the clients don't see all the nitty gritty, but we were willing to share like whether we were terrified to come that morning to possibly coach or be coached, or just learning that like very accomplished people that I admire also experience fear, and that there are different, or panic or worry or all those things, and that those parts of myself that I want to work on, they're not so unique. It's actually quite universal. So that was really, um, it kind of leveled the playing field and made me feel like, okay, yeah, I am in the right space. I do belong here.
I love that. So it does definitely, you did definitely remind me of like do you remember when we put in the wrong call time? And, and the,
Yes.
do you
Oh
want to
my
share a
God.
bit about it, Becky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes. So there was one thing I absolutely love about this program and anything in Vicky's world is that we're all co-creating this together. Like we are, and I think it's been mentioned before, but this is something that I've never experienced before, that you don't have this pre-polished, absolutely everything in inverted commas, perfect presentation of how there's a beginning and a middle and an end. And actually, this was, we are going to make it work as we go along. And that felt so exciting to me. However, our first experience of something not going quite right was the wrong call time. And so there was some chat in the Facebook groups. We're all part of a Facebook community. And people are kind of, is it this time? Is it this time? So there was some chat. Well, anyway, I saw someone's reply as if to say, well, actually, it's starting now, I think it was, or in an hour's time, or whatever it was. And I decided, do you know what? I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing. I was drying my hair and I was like, nope, I thought it was in an hour's time. So I am turning up in an hour's time. And if I've missed it, so be it. That is the course's issue, not mine. And I was very pleased with myself that I was going to carry on doing what I was doing. And I did join the call a bit later than I was going to, and put my brave pants on, because I had a bit of an argument with myself in my brain as I was drying my hair, thinking, hang on a minute, who's missing out here? You know what time this call is. So I showed up. And I showed up and realized I was absolutely terrified. And there and then I realized, well, that was why I wanted to carry on doing what I was doing and why I didn't want to show up. And the fear had made me want to run away. It was that real, I can't do this. I've signed up. I was so excited. The adrenaline had been there when I made the decision. But when I needed to really turn up and be a student again, there was something about it that I just thought, I can't do this. And I shared quite early on after joining. Vicky didn't even make it a thing that I was late. So it was like, there was no being told off. It wasn't like being at school. I just joined, saw all these lovely faces and thought, oh, why did I miss the beginning? And Vicky asked a question and probably could read between the lines in some respect. And I opened up very quickly as to the fact that I was terrified of getting it wrong, terrified of being a student again, terrified, as Leanne may have said, like just about not having that polished appearance and being really vulnerable in front of a group of people. And I shared it and I felt amazing after saying what I'd actually been feeling. And basically everyone was like, yeah, we're in the same boat. And I just love the fact that brought us all together. And that was then the glue that we needed as the cohort to support one another, because we spoke about something that we're all feeling. And of course, fear would be normal. Yet I didn't read it as fear. I just saw it as, oh, well, they've given us the wrong time. So that's on them. Mm-hmm. And not the greatest way to be dealing with any situation, but I can laugh about it now.
I mean, it was just so powerful. I remember, firstly, it was powerful. Like, it was so meant to be that even my team member had put in the wrong time. And she was so sorry afterwards. I was like, don't be sorry. This opened up something incredible for the group. It was meant to be. Um, one of the things I always model and speak about is mistakes happen, things happen. I'm never going to get angry at someone in our team because they put in the wrong time, and we'll always do our best as an organization to support everyone and make sure everyone feels like they've gotten value. But I didn't even need to, because you came, I think what was amazing was you were willing to speak about it and share about it. And one of the things that's super important in smaller containers, which this is like we co-create it, what you said before. And when one person is willing to be vulnerable and be seen, maybe a side of themselves that they didn't even want to see themselves, and they peek open a little bit, and instead of slamming it shut, they open it a bit more because of the safety in the room and the safety of the peer group, and the investment that they've made, and they're being committed to the result versus the pattern and the habit. And it's like that peak open. I think about it like when a little light gets into a room, it's like it's a lot of light. It's suddenly not dark anymore. And that's exactly what it is. It's like that, here's my human self. And, if I wouldn't have said this out loud, I might have spent the next hour shaming myself in my head. But because I've said it, and I've actually created like a de-shaming in myself and in everyone in the room, because they've allowed their human brains, like they're seeing themselves, maybe in the exact same way, but maybe in a different way. And I think this is what's so, I'm like, yes, you get certified. Yes, you become an excellent coach. But I think really you become a more truer version of yourself. And that's what I would say this cohort in particular, what I saw is everyone evolve into themselves. And I think this is the example. If you do not look at yourself truly, and who has time, capacity, space, understanding to even do that, right? Then how can you ever create it? So I think it was just such a gift from that sense. And it really did like crack open everyone in the room to be like, okay, great. I'll get coached next. This is my vulnerable thing. And it was just such a gift. So
who would know, hey? Who would know? But it was so powerful,
yeah.
so powerful. And I think at the time, I think if I hadn't have shown up and been met with such real life, I don't know, generosity and without the judgment and celebrating humanness, I'm not sure I would have ever then turned up to live calls. I think there would have been this fear or this safety in just watching everything on the replay.
Yeah.
And I would have really missed out if I had done that.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of people internationally, it's wonderful to have that as a resource, but equally, and I'm dyslexic and I find listening to things over and over again really powerful. It just allows things to cement in my mind. So it's amazing that these calls are recorded. But I think I could have found myself hiding if
Mhm.
if I hadn't have been met with what I was met with. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. And I think this is it, every round we kind of have this conversation at a certain point where it's like traditional learning was X. Traditional learning, you were shouted at for being late or pointed out or shamed for not doing homework on time or not, not participating in the right way, not following the process. And like it's really not that because we're all adults and we're all choosing to be here and we've got a purpose beyond, but I think until you go through it, you can't really understand it. So of course we bring all of our like past educational trauma and experience and expectation. So that's why we do this podcast as well, so people can hear ahead of time if they're like, I don't want to put myself back into a school environment, that it's not that.
This is the opposite. This is the complete unlearning of how things were, and it's the birth of something completely new. And
Yeah.
that's what I've loved the most about this journey is seeing how the more we are ourselves, we create businesses, communities, friendships, relationships, client relationships in a way that we couldn't even imagine. And what I was spending my time listening to the podcasts for, every podcast under the sun that was related to coaching or time or personal development, those answers weren't there. Those answers were created in moments of vulnerability and doing things in a different way.
Mhm.
And this has been the perfect example of how you do things in a different way, and that allows us to do it. And the ripple effect, hopefully, will just keep going and going and going and impacting millions of people in a new way of doing things.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Leanne.
Um, yeah, I think like the traditional uh, school or teaching environment has a lot of restrictions. Whereas I think the opposite is true, is that we were learning in the cohort how to grant permission. Permission to each other, permission mostly to ourselves to be and to show up as we needed to give grace to others, recognizing that life has like peaks and valleys, busy times, slow times, and we can't restrict that. With the like systems in the world try to like enforce these restrictions and make us follow certain paths. But that's we were kind of unlearning, like you said, Becky, and learning that granting permission to go with the flow, to accept different people's energies and their what they come with that day. That is all good. That there is goodness in all of that, and it feels good to use that patience or to give grace or to grant yourself grace is like the biggest gift I think I've learned through this. Yeah.
Yes, I like love, Leanne, when you shared, and this is something I even remember Bridget years ago going through as well, where you shared about how, because this is it, it's like giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to I think part of your work was like, taking care of yourself. And part of that was when you spoke about like leaving some dishes in the sink from your kids instead of like, yes, I could do it all and I could stay on top of things versus like, and do I have to? Do I have to manage everything? Do I have to oversee everything? Um, and I think one of the things, what you were just saying, both of you, is like, imagine what changes. Like, of course, we develop the skill of coaching. We can bring that to our jobs, to our careers, to businesses. And also, like, our relationships change. Like you said, like our relationship to ourselves, the way that we communicate to ourselves, like giving grace to ourselves is required for us to truly give grace, like resentment-free grace, to others, not like, and so I'm just hearing from both of you and just, yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about what's shown up in your life or like what's different in your lives since starting the course or getting certified or anything that you notice. Yeah, Becky.
Yeah, for me, I think learning how to fail.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it leads a little obviously back to the unlearning of school. But for me, failure has been the thing that I really had to battle with each time I was coming onto the live calls, because it was fear of judgment, fear of getting it wrong. Those two things felt so huge to me that it was making me panic, or not panic, but just be really fearful of letting myself down, I suppose. And I don't know that being judged, but I look back now and I still cannot understand why it felt so big, but it felt enormous to sort of show up each time. And the fear of failure has held me back and kept me doing what I'm good at and staying celebrated for the things that I'm good at in my career and my relationships, and in fact everything. I do what I'm good at, and I gravitate towards that. And I'm very uncomfortable doing anything that I'm not good at. And if I'm not good at it, I'm like, oh, right, that's not for me. And I am hopeless. Like whether it's the gym, if I've been to the gym 3 times, I'm like, why can't I see my abs yet? Or like I want instant results. And if I can't do it straight away, I think it links back to me thinking I'm stupid, the dyslexia thing, just back at school. And so I don't try, I run away and I don't want to do it anymore. And being celebrated in a program for failing is the most unheard of thing I had ever. I mean, come on. People would celebrate you for failing. And we're not saying failing in a negative way, because I very quickly realized failing is the quickest way to get the results, to save time, to collapse time, to invest time in the places in your life that you really, really want to. And if you told me that at the beginning of the course, in fact, probably on the website, it tells you that, where I was not ready to hear that. So that did not make sense to me, that you could learn or do more and celebrate the things that I don't know, I just would never have understood or believed that that was remotely possible, that getting things wrong was going to collapse time and speed things up. When I got to the end of the program, there is an exam, which scared the life out of me when Becki first said the word exam. At that point, I was like, oh, I just found my comfort zone in this course. And now what are you going to do to us? And honestly, just thought, oh no. But realized again, in time hacker style, this was not going to be your regular exam. But I still made it into something way bigger than it needed to be. I got myself all worked up, but the minute I opened the exam, I realized that actually this was the most amazing opportunity to reflect on our growth. And very quickly, I realized the fear of failure was one of those things. And when we had to record our coaching with fellow, well, not with fellow members of the cohort, but with, in inverted commas, real clients, people that were willing to work with us, I recorded a couple before sending one in, and I was realizing I was going down the perfectionistic fear of failure tendency. And I spoke to Kim, who was on in this cohort, and she coached me. And I just thought, I'm going to just send it in and see what happens. So I sent it in, and I thought, I'm going to fail. Yep, I'm going to fail. And I made this whole thing about how I was going to fail. And also the same with the exam. When I submitted that, I was like, right, I'm going to fail. So how much time am I going to need to spend? I brought it back to time. How much time am I going to need to spend correcting my mistakes because that slowed me down. So how can failing even speed things up? But I very quickly realized that I was spending far too much time overthinking. And that was where I was personally wasting so much of my time, but also energy, and exhausting myself instead of turning up in the abundant, positive way that I think all of it was designed and created for us to show up. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, wow. To the
Right.
point, I sent in what I would consider, if I was grading myself, D level work. I was not happy with very much of it. And I know I could have spent the whole summer saying, can we extend the deadline? Can we extend the deadline for me to achieve what I considered an A grade or whatever it might be? So when I submitted it, we waited a little while for the results to come in, and I got myself in an absolute twist. But I then self-coached and had coaching with fellow peers and realized that that was the lesson I came here to learn.
Yes.
And that is where this serious magic. And I actually was hoping to fail because I wanted that experience, that the world wasn't going to set on fire. Nothing was going to go wrong. My world wasn't going to end if I got some feedback that was going to help me grow.
Yes.
Just thought, oh, wow. How amazing is the brain at tripping you up and keeping me stuck? And for me, that is everything that this has been for me. It has been a space to trust that the whole process is meant to be however it is going to be. And the lesson that I've learned, and I've applied that over and over and over again in the last few weeks since we've completed, I am not scared of failure. It speeds everything up. It feels
Yeah.
amazing. You learn so much from it, and it becomes the gift that you get to share with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, bring on the failure.
Yes, so good. And like this is it completely. It's like even when you were speaking, I was like, I wonder why we use the word exam. I wonder if there's something else we want to use. But everything is designed not just on this place of like, yay, yippee, everything's amazing, but really to expose all of these things, to give the lessons. Like it's not like my style to give an exam, but I was like, this is an additional learning opportunity. Everything is designed to be a learning opportunity so that we face what we need to face and overcome what we need to overcome. So I love that you shared that example and that you've been implementing those lessons in the past few weeks already. Like what's changed for you in the past few weeks because you've been failing more?
Oh, so many things. I think I realized I was getting stuck in that first stage of making a decision.
Yeah.
And I was just in that overthinking stage.
Yeah.
And so, because I'm not scared of the consequence of anything, it could be as simple as the other day, just booking a holiday. Instead of spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, I just thought,
Days and weeks.
I trust that this is where we all want to go. We all, as a family, spoke about it and we're like, yeah, let's do it. But my brain instantly said, oh no, you haven't seen enough options. There could be this or there could be that. And I just sat there with myself and thought, oh, well, we can do that next time. This
Yes.
feels so good. And we moved on to the next thing. In fact, we've now booked 3 mini breaks and doing all sorts of very small but exciting things that I don't think I'd have even made one decision on which vacation to pick. And I know that's so small, and I'm using an example that's totally unrelated to work, because so many times when we pay for something like this, we think it needs to be for our business. But actually, the impact has been, of course, with my business, but for myself and the connection with the family, and just not getting overwhelmed. And it's allowed me then time in the summer holiday to do the things that matter with my kids, and then spend the time on my business doing the things that I love to do, instead of getting stuck with something that could be a small decision and was a small decision, but historically I'd make a mountain out of a molehill.
Amazing. I love the example. So good because it's so relatable, I think. And so thank you for sharing. Leanne?
Yeah, I would say that, like Becky said, like I find making decisions is easier. It just seems to just like tick along and I don't get hung up in ruts as much. I don't have as much anxiety about what do they call it? Opportunity cost. If I choose this
Mm.
option, I don't have as much fear anymore that I'm missing out on what I would have maybe gotten if I chose like left instead of right. I just have faith that the path will go in the general direction eventually that I want to go or I'm meant to go. I think sticking on the topic of failure, my perspective of failure was I was kind of haunted by past failures. So I had these things that happened even decades ago that my brain would constantly remind me, oh, if you hadn't failed calculus so many times, you would be such and such $1,000 ahead. And, like I couldn't let go of things. My brain would just constantly remind me of these times where I failed and sort of try to tell me that this is now, impacting my present. And so I think that through the course, learning that failure is actually a good thing that
Mhm.
actually helps you to get where you're going. And like, I'm very happy right now with my family and with my career. And I'm glad I failed calculus so many times because I would have gone into like a business sort of career. Instead, I went towards the arts, and I love history and preservation. And so I feel like in the last 6 months or so that I've actually been able to let go of like specific things that I've carried. And I think one of the modules we talk about our negative past self talk, whether it's been um, verbalized to us from parents or teachers or people in authority over us who've said things about us, and that we walk through life with this backpack on, carrying all these burdensome words that really hurt us over and over and over, like 1,000 cuts. So I really feel like I've been able to turn around and say, wait a minute, I don't need this anymore. This is not true. Or, or how could this be true? How could it not be true? And just learning how to ask myself questions to interrogate my brain and to say, like, what is it we're actually saying right now? And is that um, reflective of the situation, or is that maybe my brain just braining and or my past baggage, trying to like poke its head up again. So I think the program has really given me a sense of peace, peace of mind, and self-acceptance, like you mentioned.
Wow. Makes me emotional as well to think about like, the fact that we get to do this work and make this change. So thank you both for sharing. I actually just had a memory as well, Becky, when you shared about the lowering of your resting heart rate. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, that was great. That was one of my very early wins. That I think were we doing some a celebration? I don't know. Were we doing?
I
Were
can't
we?
remember.
I wonder if it was one of
Mm,
the challenges, and it was about celebration potentially. I think I don't know. Yeah. So I have not been overly kind to myself about weight over the years, and I've always judged myself negatively around weight. So weight and weighing myself is something that I've never loved to do. However, being in the program, I started to really grow into who I wanted to become. And a big part of that was understanding that a number is a number, and it's only what I make that number mean that changes anything. It's just a number. So I started to play with numbers in a way that felt comfortable me. So rather than necessarily going straight for weight, I have always got a smartwatch on, and that was tracking my resting heart rate. And one of the things that I wanted to have time to do when I took on the clinic space that I work at locally was to walk to work and do that as many times a week as I could. And it's something that I've always said, I haven't got time to do that. I haven't got time. I haven't got time. Today I've got the towels, I've got to bring everything back from work, or I've got to pick the kids up. No, I haven't got time. And I then started to ask myself in this challenge, well, if I did have time, how long would it take me to get to work? And I was like, 11, 12 minutes to walk to work? Okay. Could I leave the house 15 minutes earlier? And I was like, oh, very, very easily. Okay, let's just try it one day. I'll just try it for once. So I started to do it and very quickly realized it was less than the time that I had put in my mind. It was nowhere near as long as I thought. And I loved it. And the whole reason when I was planning where I wanted to work was that was really important to me, to see daylight, experience nature on my way to work every day. And it's something that I blame time on for not allowing me to have that experience. In fact, obviously now I realise that wasn't the case at all. But one of the things I noticed when I was walking to work more often was that my resting heart rate began to drop in a way that I'd never seen it drop. And it literally dropped beats and beats. And I don't think I can remember the numbers, but I don't know, at least 10 beats. It was crazy. And all I was doing was finding the time to walk to work. And I realized that it was bringing me such joy and happiness. And it's amazing what we blame time on that has nothing to do with the decisions that we're making. So yeah, the resting heart rate one was amazing, and it's continued to be something that I pay attention to. And yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah, I think, like you say, it's so fun when we get to expose our brain and the stories and the manipulations because it's like, you've got to conserve energy, don't change anything. And then you do it. And like you say, the benefits aren't just I always think like the benefit, our brain will underplay or overplay the cost, right? This is going to take longer than we think, and underplay the benefits, where it's like, well, yeah, it might feel a bit nice, but it's like, no, like the confidence, the fresh air, the following through on what you said you wanted, the intentionality around picking where you work so you could have this experience and then making it happen. Like, it's just so fun.
Yeah, my brain offered none of those positive things.
No.
I mean, maybe one, but the list that you've just said, I'm like, yes, and that, yeah, they're all the things that happened.
Which I took
But
from what you said, by the way. I just
but who
remembered what
I
you
literally didn't know that, but literally it's so funny because I just my brain offered none of that.
I
I
actually want to put that to our audience right now. If you are listening, your brain might be doing the same thing about becoming a coach, a time coach, and it might be over exaggerating what it's going to cost you in terms of the time and the commitment and what it's going to take, and under offering what it might give you. And I'd actually love for both of you to maybe reflect a little bit to the listeners about how your brain might have done that, how it might have offered you that it's gonna, how it might have stopped you with like, this is gonna cost too much in terms of time, money, energy, and how it undersold you the results. So what surprised you on being on the other side of it? Does that question make sense?
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking I'm just having a good old think of what.
Good, Leanne.
Uh, to me, I think the main barrier was financial. It
Mhm.
was just a larger purchase
Mhm.
than my family's used to making. And so it was a significant investment. And so there was fear about how could this pay off? How could this be worthwhile? But then I think it must have been intuitive because I didn't have a big knowledge or background about coaching. I am not in aspiring to become like an entrepreneur, and to run my own business. I really thought the investment is going to pay out in a happier mom, a more regulated, less activated mom. I was really hoping to learn new skills about emotional intelligence, emotional IQ. And I do like I manage people, I manage teams, I manage projects, I work with volunteers and colleagues. And so I think that just being able to improve my relationships with people or how I carry out different or explain to people different projects and tasks, making that go smoother is like a worthwhile investment, like any professional development investment, right? Um, and also, I mean, I love going for coffee with friends and having a gab session.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that I realized that when people are sharing, sometimes they just want to share and they aren't looking for me to solve their problems. But sometimes we'd sit for, hours and I wouldn't realize that till almost the end. Like it's almost time to go home. And I'm like, oh, oops. They actually didn't need me to solve their problems. They just wanted time to share. And so I kind of wanted to learn some more nuanced um, skills to pick up on that more easily because it's probably because I'm a mom and I want to swoop in and help and coach people along. But I was not always doing it in the most loving way and so I thought that here's something I could improve on and the option to become a time hacker coach working with Vicky afterwards, where Vicky has the infrastructure and I don't
Mhm.
need to, suddenly be managing my own website or system for booking sessions and things like that. That was appealing to me too. So I thought there's a possibility for more, but there doesn't have to be more than me learning new skills and
Mm.
becoming a better coworker, friend, mother, partner, all those things.
And self.
Mm.
Yeah. I love that. Thanks, Leanne.
For me, it's a funny one because as I said and shared at the beginning, was very much about fear of being judged, fear of getting things wrong, moving away. My brain was just offering everything about how this had to be a completely different business or my brain just kept telling me, or I just absolutely believed that this needed to be another thing that I did that stood separately from my clinic work, for instance, or anything else that I wanted to do. So I was being caught up in thinking that would be a reason not to do it because I would be judged for doing something else, and maybe what happened if I didn't follow through, and what would happen if I didn't complete the certification, or what would happen if I said I was going to do the coach qualification and then not do anything with it. What happens if I wasn't going to be the best at what I was doing, and if I didn't have a good reputation? I had every reason not to join. And of course, then you can add finances to that. How am I going to be able to afford it? Um, and would it be another certification or something that I've done that I wouldn't earn the money that I wanted to earn from my return on investment, if you like? So I had lots of thoughts as why not to do it. But after talking to you and listening to your podcast, as I said, with your parents, I just realized, well, doing it in a space with like-minded people to who I was, a radical thinker, someone who just believes there's a different way to do things, and let's give it a try and not make it mean anything if it goes in a different direction. And what I realized, that is where the magic is. And that's what I celebrate in all my clients. Yet when it was for myself, I could not see that in myself. I was like, I love it when someone's following their dreams. I'm the one going, yes, I'm celebrating everything. But for me, I was like, you can't. You need to just stand where you've been all this time, because this is where people know you to stand. And I'm like, oh, okay. And now I just believe, after doing this, that the opportunity to do and be whatever you want is there for you. And it's just trusting yourself to make the decision that it will work out in whatever way it's meant to work out. And I was looking for the silver bullet. I was looking for the thing that was going to earn me all the money, find the career that was going to impact my clients in a totally different level to the hands-on work that I was doing. And as I said at the beginning of this podcast, that's all changing. I'm looking at something completely different. And I'm so excited about that and how coaching will weave into that. I'm yet to know, but it's going to, and it will, because it can't not. And just, yeah, I'm, for me, it's, I was holding this thought of what the perfect coach would look like. And I've realized that, well, one, that doesn't exist, but two, no one wants that. We
No
want
one
to be
wants
able
to
to
work with a
relate,
perfect coach.
literally, we want to relate, and we're all so different. And the
Yes.
perfect relationship with with a coach is that your person's out there, your people are out there, and therefore trying to be you is just the most valuable thing. And I know that, just listening to you with your parents on that podcast, and all the years of listening to your own podcast, I realized that was true. But just hearing your vulnerabilities of you changing direction, and that being where the magic was. So yeah, for me, that's a huge
Yeah.
turnaround. Who knows where things are going to go, but
Yeah.
it will go the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I'm thinking about this podcast and people listening to it later date and like not even realizing how close you guys are to graduation. Like, what are we, a few weeks out? So it's just amazing to already just, it's like you've changed and therefore your decisions change, your willingness to take scary action or to fail changes. And of course, so many amazing and delicious things are going to come from that. But it's like you say, Becki, it's like you've changed. So you don't need to know how it's going to fit in yet. You just know that it will and trust that it will.
Absolutely.
Last question for both of you, because I've realized we've gone over the hour, if that's okay. Is just quickly, is there anything that you would say to anyone who is considering it, maybe has reservations, some concerns, some fear, some doubts? What would you want them to know?
I would say that the value is so high. Even though I was scared of the cost initially, the investment, that I would say it really pays out in like personal change, kind of like rewiring your brain. Like I have decades and decades going forward of being able to make simpler choices and having more peace of mind. And that's really huge and valuable for me.
Yeah, I think for me, as
Yes, I love
I've
that.
said, yeah, lots of times, about just the power of making imperfect decisions and not waiting for clarity, like that being 100% on any decision. And I know, Vicky, you talk about just even the tiniest 1%. But for me, I think I was wanting 100% clarity that this was the right decision for me. And after talking to you when you picked the phone up to me that time, and I realized that I didn't need that at all. I just needed to trust myself. So I think for anyone thinking about it, there is such a surprising power in just making an imperfect decision and waiting to what, I don't know, to see what unfolds.
Thank you, and thank you both. I just wanted to ask if there's anything that like hasn't come up that you like wanted to come up before we close off, and it's okay if not, but I just in case like I've not asked something that you like, I did want to bring this up.
For me, it's just thanking you for creating something that
Mm.
I haven't experienced anywhere else on earth. and just allowing people to to be vulnerable, to grow, and to change other people's lives through coaching, but in a way that we're using time and collapsing time and changing our perception around time, because it's the one thing we all blame not having enough of. Um, and when we start doing this work, we realize that's not the culprit at all. And we then get to a place that we can celebrate time and realize that it is the biggest gift that we all have, and there's an abundance of it. And thank you for allowing us to see that in a different way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And also just that, Vicky, you model what you share. Like the things that you talk about are lived out in your life. And I think that that is so amazing to see you walk, walk the walk, not just talk the
Walk the walk.
talk. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think like inside this program, obviously you get closer to it's like the most high touch with me program. So you probably see things that the podcast is the furthest away, and then Time Hack is a bit further, and then yeah. So and both of you joined brand new to both at the same time, is that right?
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah.
cool perspective for everyone listening as well. It's like you came in as coaches.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool. Amazing. Well, thank you both for sharing your expertise, your experience, and being vulnerable here on the podcast. Thank you to everybody listening. And if applications aren't open right now for our live class, you can still actually always apply. So you don't need to wait. But yes, I hope to see some amazing more graduates. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.